Well, hello and welcome to SoCal Prep Report. My name is Randy Rosenbaum. We're going to have a great baseball show for you tonight. Dimas baseball, they're in the house. Mike Regan, their head coach, doing a great job. They've won 19 games this year. He has Landon White, his all-star third baseman, with him as well. We'll meet them via Zoom. And a little later in the program, Les Lukach, his prep baseball report is as good as it gets. He'll break down all the top teams in Southern California. Also, we don't have Tarek with us tonight. Tarek's taking a nice little break, a little mini vacation. He'll be back next week, a well-deserved vacation. Tarek works a million jobs. All right, let's start with the National Baseball Invitational. Some scores to talk about. 4 teams from Southern California made it all the way to the semifinals in Gary, North Carolina. Hard to believe, but the last 4 standing were all from here. And let's talk about those semifinal games. Corona over Huntington Beach. Billy Carlson with the walk-off double. 6-5 for Corona. That advanced them to the championship game. Who would Corona meet? They would meet Orange Lutheran, knocking off Harvard Westlake. Yes, these teams are 3,000 miles away, and they're all Southern California teams in the semifinals. And the pinch hitter, Vinnie Hudson, was the hero there with the walk-off single in the 8th. That sets up the championship game, and Corona wins the title behind Seth Hernandez. The junior right-hander throws a 4-hitter for the Panthers. He's a great hitter, pitcher, and Corona is the #1 high school baseball team in the country after winning the National High School Baseball Invitational. All right, some other games I want to discuss briefly before we meet the guys from Dimas. How about Chaminade over Birmingham, 9-7? What makes this intriguing, it was senior day for Chaminade. They went on a walk-off home run from Vinny Vanderwell, who goes 4 for 4. But how about winning on senior day, beating the top team in the city on a walk-off home run? Great moment for Chaminade, who's having a very good year and suddenly appears in our top 10, and we'll see that a little bit later in the program. How about Sierra Canyon? Sierra Canyon's coached by Tom Usborne. He coached Chatsworth to 2 national titles a few years back. Now he's the head coach at Sierra Canyon, and he gets a real big one on his old team, 12-0 over the Chancellors. Do want to talk Dimas baseball tonight. Before we meet the guys, they played yesterday against Northview and just laid it on Northview, 16-2. Dimas having a great year. They're 19-4. They're 7-0 now in the Valley Vista League. So congratulations to the Saints. All right, let's talk about this fine baseball team from Dimas. We bring in their head coach, Mike Regan. He's been there since the turn of the century, and he's done great things. He's got with him his great infielder, the third baseman, who's had a remarkable year, Landon White. Gentlemen, first and foremost, thanks for being on the program. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. All right, let's talk about it, Coach. You're playing good baseball. I know you feel this is like one of the best teams you've had in the couple decades that you've been there. Why is your ball club so strong in 2024?
We have our 2024 class, and there's a group of kids. There's 2 2025s with 7 seniors that have played together for some of them since they were 7 and some of them since they were 13. So all these kids have played together for a while, and they're best friends, they're family. They're just they all get good grades. They're low maintenance, and they're exceptional baseball players.
Well, one of those seniors is Landon White. Landon, I know you're having a terrific year. You're hitting over 400. You have 4 home runs. You have over 30 RBIs, over 30 hits. That means you're getting better than a hit a ball game. Why are you so much improved as a senior? And you've been a 4-year starter. Why are you better in your last season for Dimas?
Thank you. I've been able to hit better because I've been able to see the off speed way, way better. Okay. So freshman year, I got a ton of fastballs. So I did exceptional my freshman year, and then sophomore and junior year, I'm starting to throw a lot more breaking balls. So I had to get used to that. And this year I finally got used to it. So now I'm batting over 400.
And how have you improved as an infielder at third base? I know you play some first base, but primarily you play the hot corner. How are you better defensively?
Coach Regan, every practice gives NDD, which is basically with all the infielders. And he helps us with bucket drills where he rolls us ground balls. And he helps us with opening up to get a better hop. And he helps us with our footwork also. So footwork and reading the hop has made me a better fielder.
Coach, you've seen the growth of your program. I know you won a CIF championship in 2009. You told me it was a D4 championship. They're all great, no matter what level they are. But now you're playing with the big boys, the best of the best, the creme de la creme, the D1 schools. How have you seen the maturation of the program, and how has it gone for you? How have you been able to build it to such a distinction where you win 20 games every year?
We've been blessed. This class has basically put us in Division One. So I think in 17 we were Division Two, and then we moved up the last 3 years in Division One, and it's pretty much because these kids that we have, the 9 kids, pretty much 7 seniors, a couple 2025s, and you're only. I think you're only as good as your players. And this year they've just came into their own. Our practices are much easier. They do things on their own that we've wanted them to do for 4 years. They bunt on their own. They steal on their own. So they make, when I'm coaching third, they make me look good because they know how to play the game.
Landon, what's the chatter in the dugout? You're obviously the best team in your league. You're winning the league easily, so you know you're going to the playoffs. What's the jive around the team? What do you want to get accomplished? What are the guys saying?
Of course, we want to win a title, but we also want to prove a point. Even though we're a small public school, we also want to make noise in the playoffs and hopefully win it.
Coach, again, your ball club is generated by Landon White. He's the poster child for your program. What makes Landon such a great player? Maybe we can embarrass him here a little bit.
You know what? He's a perfectionist, and I'd say, like, since his freshman year, probably his defense, anything that he can improve on, he does. And like every rep, every practice, he doesn't take a rep off, and he's constantly trying to get better. So he's a low maintenance kid at practice, but when he doesn't square up a ball, he's mad if he misses a ground ball, and he never gives you anything but 100%. So he's self-motivated, and he's, like, defensively is probably the biggest area that he's grown in the last 4 years. I mean, he's always been a great hitter, but he's becoming a complete player, playing both sides of the ball very, very well.
Landon, let's talk about your college choice. And again, I don't want to bypass the fact that you have the rest of the regular season and the playoffs in front of you, but you've selected Arizona State. You're going to be a Sun Devil. Why are you going to Tempe? Why that choice?
ASU has always been my dream school. And when Coach Bloomquist was hired, former MLB player, I knew he would have a bunch of experience to help coach me. And the ball flies in Arizona, so I love that for being a hitter.
Is that the reason it was your dream school, because the ball flies out of there?
Yeah, I've been a ton of MLB alumni.
Okay. Coach, you always have championship aspirations, and I know we've talked, and you feel this is a great ball club, but you've also seen some good teams. Jay Serra this year, Corona last year, who's the benchmark of all the schools right now. How far can you go, and do you really believe you can play with the top squads in SoCal?
Yeah, the last several years we've been in the National Classic, the Boris Classic, and those are the teams and the games that prepare you. So since, we've been in the Boris 4 years, I think both those tournaments 4 years in a row. So I think we have to go out of our league and play these teams and see how we stack up, and it's prepared us. And I think this team, I mean, there's a lot of great teams, so but I like our chances with this group for sure.
Well, you got a veteran squad. I wish you the best of luck. Coach, appreciate you coming on, Mike, Regan, and Landon. Best of luck not only the rest of this year, but next year in Arizona for the Sun Devils of ASU. Good luck, guys.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure. Have a good night.
You too. And congratulations again on a great season. They're good. San Dimas, one of the top 10 teams. And let's look at our top 10. Then we'll bring Les Lukach on and get his thoughts. Number 1 is Corona. They're the best team in maybe America. They won the Invitational, the National Invitational Tournament. Orange Lutheran, who was very good in that tourney as well, and Harvard Westlake. Santa Margarita, Huntington Beach are the top 5. Mater Dei, which won the Boers Classic. J. Sarah, who has a win over San Dimas. Westlake, there is San Dimas. In Chaminade, rounding out the top 10. Now, the city section top 10 is championed right now by Birmingham. Patriots, followed by Granada Hills, Carson, El Camino, and Garfield. Very strong West Valley look there. Then Sylmar, Taft, Cleveland, San Pedro, and Banning. A couple Marine League schools down there in the top 10. The Marine League and the West Valley League always seem to battle it out in the LA City section, who just recently has stated that their championship games, the 2 highest divisions, will be at Dodger Stadium on May 25th. That's when they'll play the championship games. So some of those city schools might just get back to Dodger Stadium. All right, Les Lukach is a good guy. We've known Les for a while. He has his very fine prep baseball report, prepbaseballreport.com. I think Les knows as much as anyone. We're gonna pick his brain a little bit. Les, good evening. How are you doing tonight?
Randy, fantastic, man. Great to be back on the show with you. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. All right, how good's Landon White? We just met him. How good a baseball player is he?
I listened to that interview. Landon's a great kid. We had him at our pro case last summer and got to know him a little bit there, and just kind of a quieter type player. Doesn't say a whole lot, just lets his play do all the talking. And he's got a chance to be pretty special out at Arizona State. As you said, he's hitting close to 400 or might be a little bit over 400. But he's definitely one of the driving forces for that loaded San Dimas team.
Can San Dimas compete? The coach seems confident. He's got a lot of guys that have been around for a long time. Can they compete with the Coronas of the world and the Huntington Beaches and all these top teams, Harvard, Westlake?
Well, I think given the nature of the postseason being one and done, I think anybody can compete with anybody, especially in that Division I level. But, San Dimas does have some pretty good arms, and that offense is nothing to sneeze at.
Is Corona the best team, not only in Southern California, but in the country? Les, tell me, are they the best in America?
Yes.
You got to give me more than that.
We were just talking about this internally, going through their pitching staff. You go, Ethan Schiefelbein, who's a UCLA commit, Seth Hernandez, who's a Vanderbilt commit, Sam Burgess, who's a TCU commit. You got Jake Skelski, who's an uncommitted senior. You have Mason Sims, who's a freshman, who's mid-80s and has thrown a couple of perfect innings so far this spring. Oh, and then you back it up on the back end with Billy Carlson, who's a Vanderbilt commit, was up to 97 recently out in North Carolina.
Tell me more about Seth Hernandez. Everyone seems to be talking about him. I know Eric Sotheimer of the LA Times compared him to Shohei Ohtani because he hits and throws. What kind of all-around player is this Seth Hernandez? And he's only a junior.
Well, I think before you talk about Seth Hernandez as a player, I think you need to talk about him as a person. And I got to know him really well. He was at our All-American game last fall, and so spent 3 days around him. And he's just a quality person. He spent a lot of time with some of the kids that were in the clubhouse with us during the couple of days that we were out there. And, one of the fathers came over to me and said, man, what's he doing? He doesn't have to hang out with my son. And when I kind of mentioned that to Seth, it was like, man, no problem. This is fun. And so that tells you a lot about who he is as a person. But when you get him on the mound or even in the batter's box, I mean, he's a completely different person. I mean, up to 97 on the mound, and he's toying with high school hitters. I mean, literally, kind of joking around out there on the mound almost. I mean, he smiles when he does something fun, and then you get him in the plate, and he's a legitimate athlete, Randy. He made a play in the championship game of our tournament against Orange Lutheran where he caught a ball and middle deep right field and took one step and threw an absolute laser to home plate to get the runner by about 3 steps. And then the very next pitch was a ball hit to the opposite gap. And so to his right, and he, ran about 40 yards, cut it off, threw a strike to second that, had it not been bobbled by the shortstop, it would have been an out. And those two plays really opened eyes for the scouts in attendance, wondering, well, hey, is this guy an outfielder or a pitcher? Because, the bat is going to play.
All right, if Corona is the best baseball team in the country, is the Trinity League the best league in America?
Again, another discussion we have quite a bit here in the prep baseball world. I'm of the belief that it is, and it's simply because of the depth. When you have teams like, Orange Lutheran, J. Sarah, Mater Dei, Santa Margarita, all of these teams that have 3, 4, 5, 6 Division I committed arms, not to mention hitters that are also Division I commits. You're not going to find that in a lot of programs, much less in a lot of leagues throughout the country.
What about Bryce Rayner at Harvard Westlake? How does he stack up, and how do the Wolverines look to you? Because they're amongst the elite teams in the polls right now.
Yeah, we have Harvard Westlake ranked 3rd in the state behind Corona and Orange Lutheran currently, and that's only because of they split the last 2 games there with Orange Lutheran. But you ask about Bryce Rayner, he's a first-round pick. Any way you slice it. He's a shortstop. He's proven that he can play shortstop. He's proven that he can stay at shortstop, and he's also proven with the bat that is a legitimate tool. And so, then you get him on the mound and, he's also mid to upper 90s, so there's a lot of tools in that skill set that are very valuable to scouts and professional organizations. But I do think Harvard Westlake has a really good chance in the postseason. You can never count Jared Halpert out. He's one of the brightest coaches in the industry here in Southern California, if not the entire state. And, he slows things down and he puts his players in the best position possible. And his players execute more times than not. And so I don't think you can count Harvard Westlake out, for whatever reason you might want to. I believe they clinched the Mission League yesterday. So that's another feather in their cap. But knowing those guys, the big trophy is at the end, and that's the one they really want.
We had Dylan Volantis on this show, a young man from Westlake. I know he's going to USC. I've never seen him throw the ball. He's obviously good. He's going to be a Trojan next year. Tell us about Dylan.
Yeah, he's a guy who, in the industry they say he has a lot of helium because, his stock just continues to rise. You're talking about a mid to upper 90s fastball with a really good slider breaking ball combination, and he's got a feel for a changeup. And he's a bigger bodied guy, and it's a guy who from the left side is kind of battling with Schiefelbein here to be the top arm.
Okay. What about Huntington Beach? I hear so much about the Trinity League schools. I know about Harvard Westlake. Obviously, Corona's had a breakthrough year, and with the Ebel brothers going over there, they're even more dominant. Well, tell me about Huntington Beach and their chances down the road.
This is a really good Huntington Beach team that is starting to hit their stride. So they were in our preseason tournament. They went 2-2. They scuffled a little bit. Had a couple of really bizarre losses in league there. Went out to North Carolina, made a run to the semifinals. And now they're back here, obviously playing the second round of their league. Had a big win yesterday against Edison. This is a team that has pitching. This is a team that can defend, and this is a team that can really, really hit. And so if they get a home game or two in the postseason, that's a big bonus for them. But I think that even if they go on the road, there's a handful of coaches in the southern section, right? Maybe a dozen or so, where they have built programs versus just teams. And Huntington Beach is one of those. And those are the programs that you just can't count out in the postseason because they prove it over and over again that they can get it done. And I have no doubt that Benji and his staff will have their guys ready for the postseason.
Last question. How shocking was it that Mater Dei, and I know they're a Trinity League team, so obviously they're talented, won the Boris Classic?
It's funny. I was just having this conversation with a coach today. I don't know that it's shocking. I mean, they're pretty talented. Wyland Moss is a very, very talented pitcher going to UCLA for them. They obviously have Thomas going to Washington. Then they have the young man. I'm sorry, is Gordon, who's going to USC as well. So they have some talent on the mound. They've got a transfer from Oregon who's really boosted their bullpen. They have a couple of other guys on the mound that are just getting it done. If you talk to some of the coaches at Mater Dei before the first game of the Boris Classic, which I did, you wouldn't have thought their chances were very good. But you got to tip their hat to those guys. I mean, they beat La Mirada and they beat Huntington Beach in 11-inning games, and then they came back the next night and they beat Corona. It was only 4-2, but talking to some of the coaches on the Corona side, it sounds like they really were struggling to pick up pitches.
Les, you're great at this. Keep close to your phone because we'll be calling again.
Awesome, Randy. Appreciate you having me on again, man. Thank you.
All right, we appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you down the road. Les Lukach, and again, he's got his prepbaseballreport.com. where he breaks down all the teams and the players, and as you can tell, he knows his stuff. All right, let's turn our attention to softball. We have about 8 minutes of programming time to go, and I got a few topics to discuss. We start in softball with Orange Lutheran. Got to talk about their great pitcher, Brianne Weiss. Here at 9-3, and she has 14 Ks. That was just one of 2 great pitching performances this week. She threw another game where she had another big strikeout performance, 12 Ks against Jay Sarah. She blanked Jay Sarah 1-0. So kudos to Brianna Weiss. Also want to talk about Granada Hills softball. They're the best team in the LA City section. You can see they just laid it on Taft 13-0. Soriano a home run, a triple, and 4 RBIs for the Highlanders. And they got a great pitcher there in Mormon. She's just a junior. She's 9-1, and she's really getting it done, Addison Mormon. And Granada Hills is the team to beat. I will say San Pedro is coming on. San Pedro, we just got a result. They scored 19 runs today against Narbonne. They're 6-0 in the Marine League. Jen Ortega is their outstanding pitcher. She had 12 strikeouts today. So San Pedro is a factor. But right now, Granada Hills is the best team in girls softball in the LA City section. Need to talk about Mater Dei football. Frank McManus had a heck of a good first season for the Monarchs. They went 13-1. They have all the hardware. You see the trophy. They won the championship. Elijah Brown was his great quarterback. He's gone. He's not the coach anymore. Why? Well, him and the administration obviously didn't get along, so they parted ways. So, again, when you're 13-1, you're an assistant for many years under Frank Rollinson, you'd think he'd have it down pat, but they just didn't agree on different ways to run the program, so he's out. And I got a couple names here I kind of want to throw out that potentially could be the head coach. There are a couple guys on the staff that are already there. Khalid Holmes is one of them. He's the offensive line coach. They like Randy Wright. He's a good guy. He's part of the football operations department. He's got a chance. But there's some other big names that are really factors that could be the Mater Dei football coach. Raul Laura's name has been tossed around. He had 13 magnificent years at Long Beach Poly, won 5 CIF championships, and at one point was the team that knocked off Mater Dei. Poly was great when Raul Lara was there, and he's easy to work with and a very good guy. Another one would be Troy Thomas, who's had great years in the past at Servite. He was great at Crespi as well. He's won CIF championships. Really gets it done, energetic guy. I could see him. And then there's John Ellinghaus. Now, John's already said to some of the people I know that he's probably not going to go there. He's the coach at Sierra Canyon. Ironically, the one game they lost last year was to Mater Dei in the playoffs. He won every other game. He's won 2 state titles in the 17 years he's been there and built the Sierra program up through the ranks, now going into the Open Division last year, and they got knocked off in D1 before the Open State tournament. So he's done a great job. I could see Ellinghaus but I don't know if he's going to get the job. If I had to pick one name, probably coming from in-house, one of the local guys who've been at Mater Dei, or perhaps Raul Laura. That's going to be very interesting to see who Mater Dei picks as their head football coach. I had an opportunity this weekend to go to the Collision All-Star Basketball Games. Now, we have All-Star Basketball Games all the time. The Battle of the Valley is a great one. They had that a few weeks ago. I love it because it's the city against the Southern Section. It wasn't very competitive in the girls' game. It was a lopsided score. You can see it there, 75-45. Southern Section went out to an early lead and blew them out. And the series record is 20-4. It's 24th edition. It was a tribute really to Kobe Bryant. They played in Laker colors. Everything was a tribute to Kobe and his daughter. You know, a great cause. They did a great job showcasing the game. And as you can see, the Southern Section won handily. But the boys' game was magnificent. This was a fabulous game. 103-102 in overtime. You can see the series record now is 14-10 for the Southern Section, so it's much more competitive. Tyrone Riley from St. Pius poured in 41 points, hit the game winner in the final 7 seconds of overtime, and obviously was the MVP of the game. So it was great to go out and really witness a terrific high school basketball all-star game. A couple other notes. Former Corona Centennial star Jared McCain, he's leaving Duke. Not a great surprise. Great outside shooter. He's going to go into the NBA draft. He'll get selected. He had a couple 30-point games this year for Duke, only in his freshman year. I mean, he lit it up. I knew he was good at Corona Centennial. I didn't know he was that great a shooter. I know he was big time, no question about it. Everyone knew McCain. He was the guy, but I didn't realize how great a shooter he was. He had many games this year where he knocked down a lot of three-point shots. How about Amari Bailey? Amari was the great player at Sierra Canyon. He was heralded, went to UCLA, played a year, jumped to the NBA, but struggled to make the Charlotte team. And he was down in the G League much of the year. Came up for the final game of the year against Cleveland, and Amari Bailey came through. In limited minutes, he scored 11 points, assisted on 5, had 5 assists, and hauled down 5 rebounds. So a tremendous performance for Amari Bailey. Now I'm thinking next year, Amari's going to be part of that Charlotte Hornet team. He'll grow up. He's very athletic, very good. Played with Bronny James. Bronny got a lot of the headlines, but Amari Bailey's got great athletic ability. He's going to have a good NBA career, and it was great to see him finally break through and have a nice game for Charlotte. And I finally want to talk about Kalina Smith, the freshman girls basketball star at Ontario Christian. Ontario Christian had a great year. They were 28-5. All Kalina Smith did this year was average 35 points a game as a freshman. She had one game where she had 55 points and hit 11 threes in the contest. That's great stuff. Can you imagine how good she's going to be? We see the emergence of women's basketball and girls basketball. Juju Watkins at Sierra Canyon, now at USC. Well, this young lady, Kalina Smith, is the next great player. I've been told she works out in the gym and puts up 1,000 shots a day. And you wonder why she's knocking down threes. 35 points a game. And if Kalina Smith continues on this pace, she will become the all-time greatest scorer in the history of the CIF Southern Section. Don't be surprised if he gets it done. Kalina Smith will be the next big name. Well, that's everything I have on the docket tonight. It was great running solo. Missed my partner, though, Tarek Fatal. He's having some fun. I heard he had a great round of golf this week, so that's part of his vacation. And he'll be back next week. I'm sure we'll talk about a lot of baseball, softball, maybe even some volleyball, because volleyball is really beginning to heat up. Also want to thank Les Lukach from his prepbaseballreport.com. Isn't he marvelous? Really knows all the individuals, and he broke it down for us. As well as we want to thank the guys from San Dimas, the head coach, Mike Regan. He's been there the whole century. Got there in '99, and he's really done a great job at San Dimas. It was nice to meet his outstanding star, Landon White, the third baseman, going to Arizona State. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of SoCal Prep Report. For Larry and Gio and the rest, we'll see you next time right here on SoCal Prep Report. Good night, everybody. Disappeared on me.